welcome to Belfast. As you can see, we're getting ready for Christmas. And Christmas is going to be a little bit different for all of us this year. And I've got a story about another time whenever Christmas was a little bit different because of a problem. I'm going to read it to you now. Santa was in his workshop doing a clear out. There was a load of old junk lying around from last Christmas, and he needed to make way for the new toys that his elves were going to start making. He had just moved a big box of wood out of the way when he heard a big, loud plop. A puddle the size of a Christmas cake had formed on the workshop floor, and as Santa stood there looking at it, another drip fell from the ceiling and landed right in his nose. "What on earth is this?" exclaimed Santa, wiping his nose. "I need to find out where this water's coming from." Santa rang his bell and an elf came running into the workshop. "Jingles, have you seen this leak? You're my elfin safety rep. Do you know what's causing it?" The bells at the end of Jingles' cap jangled as he shook his head. "No." "Right," said Santa, "there's nothing else for it. We need to go up onto the roof, dig down through the snow, find that hole and fix it." Jingles looked at Santa with big, wide eyes. "We're at the North Pole," he said. "There must be 10 meters of snow up there." "Better bring a big spade then," said Santa, who was already pulling on his boots. "Come on, that leak, it's only getting worse." When they got outside, Santa and Jingles got the most enormous shock, because instead of finding lots of snow, they found themselves on an island surrounded by water. "What on earth?" shouted Santa and Jingles together. "At the North Pole! There should be snow and ice as far as we can see. What is going on?" "Go and see if the reindeer are okay," said Santa to Jingles. "I'm going to find out why this ice is melting." As Santa was back at his desk, reading his news reports, Jingles came back into the workshop. "Do you want the good news or the bad news, Santa?" he asked. Santa looked at him over the rim of his spectacles. "Oh, you choose," he said. "Well, the good news is that the reindeer are fine and have patched up the hole in the roof. But the bad news is that we have a real problem getting all of the materials that we need for Christmas. I can't find anywhere that can send us the supplies we need before January." Santa sat back into his chair and sighed. "Oh, I was afraid of that," he said. "I think that it's linked to the ice melting. The people of the world have used up so many of the world's resources that there's hardly anything left. And whenever they finish with their stuff, they just throw it away. The rubbish ends up in the landfill site, and this gives off gas. And that is what's heating the planet up and making the ice caps melt. It's a terrible problem. There are tropical islands that are going to go underwater as the sea level rises. And there's a great big garbage patch full of plastic in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. The animals that live there are dying as they have to swim through a plastic soup. I don't know where to start with this because this problem is bigger than one person can solve." Mrs. Claus came in just as Santa and Jingles were talking things over. Are you checking your list, dear? Because it's already beginning to grow." Santa looked glum. "I think we're going to have to cancel Christmas this year, sweetheart," he said. "We need snow for the reindeer and the sleigh to work, and even worse, we don't have anything to make new toys with. It doesn't look as though Christmas is going to be any fun at all." Mrs. Claus scratched her head and looked straight at Santa. "You have to make this work," she said. "You are Father Christmas, and all the children in the world are counting on you this year, just the same as they do every year. What about using some of those materials left over from last year?" Santa had a look at one of the boxes he had just moved out of the workshop. He thought to himself, if I just cut that bit of wood up a bit, and there's a bit of wiring I could use. I wonder if you could bend that bit of plastic. Oh, good, yes. In no time at all, Santa had made a remote control boat out of a plastic bottle, a coat hanger, and a scrap of old material. With a little bit of Christmas magic, it looked sleek and fast and perfect for racing on a boating lake. Mrs. Claus nodded her approval. "Good," she said. "I know just the child who will love that. It's a brilliant start. But you're going to need a bit more if you're going to get to the bottom of your list." Jingles jumped up. "Oh, Santa, I have an idea," he said. "We have a big container full of wrong toys left over from the past few years. They didn't work right, so we didn't send them out, but maybe we could reuse those to make new toys." "Perfect," said Santa. "Let's get started on this now." So Santa and Jingles worked all day without stopping, and by early evening they had a pile of toys that would fill a room, all ready to be wrapped up for Christmas Day. As they stood back and admired their work, Santa began to look glum again. "What's wrong?" asked Jingles. "I thought that you would be really happy with this. This has been some of your best ever work." "I am proud of it," said Santa, "but the thing is, it's not enough. We've used up all of our leftovers. We've recycled all of our old toys, but this isn't enough to give every child a gift on Christmas morning. We need more broken toys." Jingles looked forlorn. "Where are we going to get more broken toys from?" he said. "What we really need is for every child to send us one of their old broken toys, and then that way we would have enough for everybody and maybe even a bit to spare." "Brilliant!" Jingles yelled Santa. "Just brilliant! That is exactly what we will do. We will get every child to take an old broken toy to their local recycling centre. We can collect these and we can recycle them into brand new toys." So very carefully, Santa wrote a letter to all of the children on his list. Every letter was individual, but most of them went a bit like this. "Dear..." Yeah, I know. "I hope that you are well and looking forward to Christmas. Thank you so much for the mince pie and the shortbread last year. It was very thoughtful. Rudolph and the other reindeer really appreciated the carrots, and we're all looking forward to visiting you again this Christmas Eve. Here at the North Pole, we've noticed that there's a lot less snow than usual and a lot more water. It's a big problem. The polar bears are really grumpy and they need their ice back. And on the other side of the world, some of the islands in the Pacific are about to go underwater because the glaciers that are melting here are making the sea level rise there. In the middle of the Pacific, there's an enormous area like a dirty plastic soup, and it's killing the birds, the fish, and the animals that live there. But most worrying is the fact that we're finding it really difficult to get the things we need to make toys this Christmas. We really need your help. We think that if every child takes an old broken toy to their local recycling centre rather than putting it into the bin, we can begin to change things. If every grown-up recycled more of their rubbish and all of their food waste, we could make a really big change. And if everybody only bought what they really needed, turned off lights whenever they go out of a room, and walked occasionally rather than using the car, we could have a healthier world and fitter bodies to enjoy it. I really hope that you can find something and take it to your recycling centre, because we can only fix this if everybody does their bit. And there's a better chance that you'll be on my good list if you do. Take care of yourself. Lots of love, Santa. Once the letters were posted, there was nothing to be done except wait. Santa, Jingles and Mrs. Claus tried to keep themselves busy as best they could, but they were nervous. Then the phones started ringing. Recycling centres all over the world were beginning to fill up with toys, because children everywhere were looking for old broken toys and other waste, but instead of putting it into the bin and sending it to landfill, they were recycling it. And Santa was overjoyed. "Oh, hooray!" he shouted. "There's hope!" And with that, he, Jingles and the other elves raced off to the workshop to start work on the new toys. Mrs. Claus smiled to herself as she watched them disappearing with a load of old toys. And then she shivered. Whew, had to rub a bit of heat back into her arms. As she wrapped her cardigan a little closer round herself, she thought, "I'm cold. I haven't been cold for weeks." And she raced to the window to look out at the weather. And sure enough, the first snowflakes were beginning to flutter down and the sea was beginning to freeze back over. "It's working! Santa, it's working!" she called down to the workshop. "It's really working! The parents and the other grown-ups must be recycling their rubbish. They're driving less and they can't be wasting any energy. I'm so pleased." Santa went to the window and smiled. He was glad to see things improving, but he knew that this was just a start. People would have to keep recycling and saving energy all of the time, not just this once, if they wanted to protect the world's vulnerable people and places. He thought about the Great Pacific Garbage Patch and about a little boy who had asked him for some Meccano and a paddling pool some years ago. He grew up to be a marine engineer, thought Santa. I should check in on him, see if he has any ideas about how we fix this problem. He looked at his watch. "Oh, is that the time?" he exclaimed. "We need to get a move on with these toys." So Santa, Jingles and Mrs. Claus joined the other elves in the workshop, sorting out all of the old toys, making an ideas list of all the things they could be turned into, and then transforming that rubbish into wonderful brand new toys. That year, the boys and the girls on Santa's good list had their best ever Christmas. The toys were better. They were more interesting, and they were much more fun than ever before, so everyone was happy. Santa watched from his house at the North Pole and smiled. He thought about some of the other problems in the world, like trees being cut down in the rainforest, and animals like orangutans and tigers losing their homes. Oh, that could go into next year's letter, he thought to himself sleepily. And with that, he closed his eyes for a moment and took a well-earned rest.